A very good morning to you. How are you doing? Welcome to another episode of Jam 316. It is what we call Lifestyle Friday, where we talk about issues that have to do with our lifestyle and how we are looking at life and how we are living life. And the COVID-19 pandemic has caused us to change how we do life. Things are not the same. As we like saying in Kenya, vitu kwa ground ni different. We are learning a new way of life, and it's coming up with some challenges here and there, but we are learning as we go along. Now, there's one thing I've not heard a lot of us talking about during this whole season, and it's the issue of our nutrition. We've talked about quite a number of things. We've talked about masks. We've talked about washing hands. But I've not had many conversations about nutrition in this season, and we want to get into that and to see what we can come up with. In studio with me today, Daktari is joining me yet again, Dr. David Githanga, who's a pediatrician, cardiologist, and public health specialist. It's good to have you in studio.
Thank you. Thank you, Pastor James. Yeah.
And then I also have a dietitian. Where have you been all my life? Jasper Omondi Olo, dietitian at the Aga Khan University Hospital right here in Nairobi. It's good to have you.
Thank you.
Maybe I would ask the obvious question that may look like a silly question, but I think it's important. Should we even be considering talking about nutrition in such a time?
In such a time?
Yeah.
It's important to talk about nutrition in two perspectives.
Okay.
There's the perspective of boosting the immunity, where people talk about you need to eat so that you have the right immunity.
Yes.
To cope with the virus in case you happen to get an infection.
Okay.
And then there's the perspective of eating right in this time when there's minimum activity. People are getting locked down in their houses, even if there's no lockdown in movement in the country. But then the level of activity, the level of interaction, our gyms are closed. Now, the issue of what you eat is very important.
Okay.
Lest you end up piling a lot of fat at this time.
Saving for a rainy day. I like the whole issue of the first point you raised about boosting our immune system.
Yes.
I've not had a lot of discussions about that, even though I've had, if you have a low immune system, this virus could really attack you. Daktari, maybe you could come in here and help us a bit with the whole issue of what he's raised.
Yeah, thank you, Pastor James. Yeah. It's true. Quite often, when we think about nutrition, we think about what we call macronutrients, the things that we learned in school: carbohydrates, fats, vitamins, and so on.
My biology teacher is smiling. She's hoping I paid attention.
And we think about something called micronutrients, and these are very important nutritional components that are key, particularly in the development of younger people.
Okay.
Young children, in fact, children range from the unborn one, who is called a fetus medically, to one that is breastfeeding exclusively, to one that is breastfeeding and getting something supplementary, to 3, 4-year-old, 5-year-olds, up to 15-year-olds, and so forth. All those are spectrums of children who are growing. There are different stages of development.
Yeah.
And when you talk about development, we're not just talking about weight and height and head circumference, which is what we most often do think about. We are thinking about how their systems get wired. Especially your central nervous system and so on, the way the hormones are made and so on. And those particular micronutrients are very key in that development that is at a cellular level that you cannot basically put on the scale and talk about. And that's what Jasper did allude to about your immunity. Your immunity is very, very important. In fact, it works in the background all the time. Probably the 80% of the people for whom COVID-19 doesn't affect, it's really the immunity that's working for them. We don't know. So, and I think that's the importance of what is called hidden hunger or micronutrient deficiency is something that we need to think about. And Jasper here is the guru,
He is the guru.
the pandit.
I'm
as we
telling
say,
you.
Yes.
So, Jasper, what are some of these foods that we should be aware of that increase our immunity? I'm thinking of people who are prone to, like people who are asthmatic, because this is a virus that's affecting our respiratory system.
Yes.
So, what are some foods we need to be aware of?
Allow me to take it from where Dr. Gidanga
Yes.
has highlighted. He talked of macronutrients
Yes.
and micronutrients. When we talk of macronutrients, those are the nutrients that you need in large quantities. And that's where we have the proteins, carbohydrates, and fats. And these are very, very important also when it comes to immunity, because our immunity depend on what we call antibodies.
Yes.
And antibodies are protein in nature. So if you don't have the macronutrients, you're not providing proteins into your system adequately,
Okay.
then your immunity will be affected. Then number two, he has talked of micronutrients.
Yes.
When we talk about macronutrients, is the deficiency of the micronutrients is usually very hard to tell unless you take a sample of somebody's blood and you take to the laboratory for analysis. It's very hard to tell deficiency from micronutrients. But from macronutrients, if you're deficient, we'll see you losing weight. Okay. Or if there's an imbalance, we see you adding weight unnecessarily.
Yeah.
When there's an imbalance.
So you could actually be adding weight, but you're not. You're what did you call them? Is it the macro or the micro?
The micro.
The micro.
Yes.
The micronutrients are not where they need to be.
Are not where they need to be.
Looks are deceiving.
Yes. So micronutrients are the ones we call vitamins and minerals, which we get mainly from fruits. The types of vitamin C that we talk about. We talk of vitamin A, vitamin E, vitamin D we get from the sun. By exposing the skin to the sun.
Yeah.
And now with the lockdown, then we would be at risk of that.
Okay.
Then we have nutrients like iron, zinc, nutrients like selenium. Those are the micro ones, in trace quantities, but they play a very critical role in boosting in making the immunity strong enough to fight infections like viral infections.
Okay.
Yes.
So would you say in this season we actually should be eating a lot of fruits?
Now, you called me a dietitian.
Yes.
And in dietetics, we have principles that guide the kind of advice we would give.
Yes.
If I tell people to take a lot of fruits at this time, then I might end up misleading them. They end up stocking their fridges with fruits and forget about.
Yes, I'm asking because we are stocking, and when I was looking at what people were buying, I didn't see any fruits. I just saw carbohydrates, unga, namchele.
Yes.
That is what I saw.
You had to see that because those are the ones that have longer shelf life.
Yes, that's true.
You know,
That's
fruits
true.
and vegetables normally are things you buy on a daily basis, or if you have a longer time to store them, probably it's a week. If you have a refrigerator, yes. So there are things that people usually buy from nearby shops.
Okay.
And that's why the other day when the president was addressing the Mama Mbogas, I think he addressed a very important person in the community.
Yes.
Because she's interacting with people on a daily basis.
Very true.
These are things you go and buy from the kiosk, you go back to your house.
Yes.
So why I wouldn't tell them to go for fruits is if you eat too much fruits also without balancing, without moderating, without also varying, then you'll still be doing harm to your body.
Okay.
The key elements when you are eating food, even to maintain your immunity, is to see to it that you balance, you ensure that you don't overdo one and do less of another. Then number two, you eat a variety.
Yes.
For example, if it is fruits, you don't go for oranges every day. You do an orange, an apple, a
Yes.
banana. That is a variety.
Some of us are doing many oranges and lemons.
Because we've been told of vitamin C.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So as you take them, you'll be limiting some other nutrients that you could have gotten, let's say, from grapes, from pineapple, from watermelon.
Their balance is key.
Balancing and varying is key.
Okay.
And then also what we call moderation. You have to moderate.
Yes.
Even if you love the oranges,
Yes.
you don't end up consuming like 10 oranges in a sitting. That's why you're not moderating.
But you know, right now the struggle is real, because for a lot of people who are working from home, you realize that when you're in the house,
Yes.
your brain tells you you're hungry.
Yes.
You make a lot of visits to the kitchen.
Yes.
And before you know it, you had tea in the morning, you had another tea in between the chai san, and then you had chai san. You're always eating. So we also need discipline in that area. But I wanted to ask you, Dr. because I know you look after children. Yeah, you love children. And so children are at home, and they are not as active as they usually are.
Yes.
Because we are telling them, don't go out. And we are telling them, don't jump on the sofa.
Yes.
Sit down. It's not a holiday. Do your work.
Yes.
How do we balance this in terms of their nutrition?
I think Justus brought it out very well. Good question, that is. I think it's a question of balance. If you look at our culture, and food is a cultural thing.
Yeah.
We are largely a carbohydrate society.
Yes.
And when we are having food, you say, well, we had ugali for lunch, we'll have rice for dinner, and we'll have chapati. We may do some bit of arrowroots that somebody brought from the village, or
Yes.
cassava. Effectively, that's just one food. It doesn't matter how you make it. And the body breaks it down to its essential component, which is a carbohydrate.
Yeah.
And the body cannot store a lot of carbohydrate as in that form, so it packs it away. The other is to think about things like proteins. So we are a carbohydrate-driven society, and if you're talking about a wide group of people who live in the rural areas and so on, it's probably carbs are the biggest
Yeah.
issue.
Yeah.
The next group of foods, the proteins, are a little more expensive. Maybe you're talking about maybe an egg, maybe meat, even
Yes.
matumbo.
Yes.
Matumbo is even obambo, even
Then you know bamboo.
I know bambo, yes, I know bambo. Mgongoazi, you need to have mgongoazi. That's
Yeah.
an important. That's an important, but it's an expensive component as well. Fortunately, you do not need it in as much quantity, and I'm sure Justus will tell us how much quantities we do need. Probably about a third of your food should be made of proteins and so on. And you don't have to have it all the time, but you have to deliberately think about it. So what we are being told to do now is to think a lot more seriously about the foods that we are giving. What is it? That you have had rice, porridge, ugali, mashed potato, it's really the same thing. When you're growing, it's even more critical. So we have issues of activity, we have issues of availability and cost. And fortunately, the people who are food suppliers have been identified as an essential worker.
Yeah.
So hopefully the foods will still be able to move and so on. But I am sure that for some reason or other, there will be increase of costs because of the... I'm sure the system, we are a service-based sort of industry. So those are things that we need to consider. But I think, and I think I said this before, that we begin by knowing.
Yeah.
When you begin by having the knowledge, then you're able to look at your circumstances and then have solutions that are fit for where you live. It sounds very theoretical, but if you don't know, they say the eye does not see what the brain does not know. So you need to know, and then you say, I have this type of mboga, I have chicken there, I have maybe this nyama that I can keep to dry
Yes.
if I don't even have a fridge, and have just a small little piece. So I think it's really deliberately parents to think about really the diet the way it was meant to be thought, almost academically.
Yeah. Okay. What about parents who may tend to try and take a shortcut? Maybe you have a bit of money that you can use during this hour. You know, you had your that basket for a rainy day. It was full, so you are not pressed for cash necessarily. And so the shortcut is a lot of snacking. Because children are at home,
Yes.
they can't go outside. So to quiet them down, I just give them a snack here, a snack there, a snack there. What would you say to such a parent?
Dr. has brought it out very well.
No, just snacks and crisps,
Yes.
a bit of cake here and there.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can say in our setup, we have a lot of food that can form or can be used as snacks, which we hardly use.
Okay.
Like groundnuts. Nuts form a very good form very good snacks, and they provide proteins. They provide the right type of oils for our
Yes.
body, vitamins and minerals, compared to like eating crisps, eating biscuits,
Yes.
which are basically carbohydrates without the vitamins and minerals. So things like groundnuts, if they don't have allergies to them, macadamia, we grow them here, but mainly I think meant for exports.
Yes.
We hardly consume them.
Yeah.
I don't know if it is because of the cost, but even those who grow them, I presume they don't eat much of them.
Yes.
So it's high time we start considering using what we have locally. Things like sim can form a very nice snack. You go to the supermarkets, you'll find them there, but people hardly buy them.
Yeah.
Because probably they don't believe that, or even acceptability.
Yes.
We still have not accepted them to form part of the snacks that you can have.
Okay.
And they are natural, they are wholesome, they also contain fiber.
Okay.
At this time, talking about fiber is also important. Because if you don't consider that, and with less activity,
Yes.
And people being indoors, number one, they don't feel like drinking water as much. Number two, if they don't have fiber and they don't exercise, then the problem of constipation
Yes.
might
May arise.
might arise.
Okay.
So those natural, wholesome foods, I think, should form our snacking. Fruits, whole fruits, also form a very good snack in between meals.
Okay. You earlier on talked about sunlight.
Yes.
How important is that? Because we are trying to keep our children indoors. You know, where I live, the other day, people were discussing on the WhatsApp group and complaining, some of you are allowing your children to go outside. They should not be going outside. Wakiambukizwa wataambukiza watu wengine. And so there was a lot of conversation. But is it important for people to go out into the sun? And if yes, how often? Because we are in a situation where we don't know how long this period will be. It may even get tighter as we go along.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's a very important question. And I'll approach it from this perspective. You know, deficiencies, when they start manifesting, they manifest more in children.
Oh.
Because of their rapid growth. Dr. will also, I think, elaborate on that. Their rapid growth, their nutrient needs are a little bit much higher per kilogram of their body weight. And so if you deny them a nutrient within a short time, a deficiency will manifest. And even before this time of lockdown, there has been a rise.
Oh, really?
It has not been documented probably, but if you would talk to clinicians, they would tell you that the rate of vitamin D deficiency is not as it used to be before. More so in Nairobi, families who are living in flats, where you find someone on the 7th floor or the 6th floor. So the child hardly goes out to the sun unless they are going to the church.
Yes.
So they end up...
now that church is not even available.
It's not even available.
Yes.
So it's something that has been there. It's only that I think the research still needs to... detailed research to confirm that. So if you see it in children, it is obvious that it is in the community.
Okay.
And vitamin D in the tropics, in this area where we live around the equator, is something that has been ignored because we get it when you expose your skin to the sun.
Yeah.
And there's abundance of sun in this region of the world.
Yes.
So it's something that has never been taken seriously. So the best source that the body needs is just exposing your body to the sun for around 45 minutes to 1 hour. Those of us who are darker, those who have light skins can go for around 30 minutes to around 45 minutes.
This is every day?
In a day.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Watu hawajua. Let's not lock ourselves in the house
and it
completely.
doesn't have to be direct sun. It's actually UV radiation. So even if you're on a balcony and you open your windows, you really get exposed to the light that is ultraviolet light that actually helps in the formation of vitamin D.
Okay.
So you do not have to bake yourself until you get my complexion.
Until we get a tan. In this region, we don't get a suntan.
Allow me to add that actually the sun that is recommended is when it's still coming at an angle, not overhead.
Not overhead.
Yes. Because when it's coming at an angle, let's say between 9 up to around 10-ish at an angle, it gets a wider skin surface.
Yeah.
And again, when it's about the time it's setting. The overhead one is also too hot.
Yes.
That can make you end up having sunburns.
You and your suntan, I'm a sunburn. One of the main conversations that has been going on concerning whether we should lock down completely or not lock down has been the issue of food. Because those who live hand to mouth are saying, we don't have a problem staying at home. Will you feed us? You know, and so the more we progress with the situation we find ourselves in, as things are made even tighter in terms of people staying home, access to food will be an issue.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm just wondering, are there creative ideas we can come up with as families? Because you see, we are used to a certain way of life. And even with this situation we find ourselves in, we are still insisting we want to go on with life as though it is normal, but it is not.
It's not.
So what are some of the things we can start to think about that we can start doing where our food and diet is concerned, because the supply chain may be interrupted?
Maybe interrupted.
Yeah.
When we talk of availability of food at household level, it's usually the issue of how to preserve that food.
Yes.
Yes. And preservation comes through ways of drying, ways of fermentation, ways of cold storage, ways of salting, ways of smoking. He talked of obambla. Obambla is fish that after it had been fished fresh, it is cut in the middle and then it is sun-dried. And that makes it keep for longer.
Yeah.
And it do not require refrigeration. Fermentation, you know, milk, we get it in fresh form, and you keep it for a short while, it goes sour.
Yeah.
If it is fermented, it can keep for longer than if it is fresh. And its nutritional value will not change.
Okay.
In fact, when it is fermented, it's even better.
Oh.
Because the bacteria that grows in it...
Really?
Yogurt.
Yes.
Yogurt like maziwa mala.
Yeah.
Lala.
Yeah.
When it's fermented, it's even better. You have the bacteria growing in it that is very healthy for the tummy and has several functions, even in boosting immunity, the probiotics. smoking, though it used to be done traditionally,
Yeah.
I don't think if in town setup would have a way of doing it.
Maybe the availability of the food to be smoked is not.
In town settings, as we understand barbecue.
Yes, because like you could see the old shows. I had a privilege of being raised by my grandmother. If, let's say, there was too much meat, and that would only happen if maybe someone slaughtered a cow that was about to die in the village.
From old age, not disease, hopefully.
Hopefully.
Then the neighbor could give you a big chunk of it.
Yeah.
Then it would be salted and then just put with a stick over the cooking fireplace.
Yeah.
Now the smoke will just go into it. Okay? That's a way of preservation. So if we talk about the availability at household level, we only have to consider issue of how we would preserve the food that we have. Fruits can also be dried.
Okay.
There's the option of drying fruits so that they are more available later on if getting fresh ones is a challenge.
Okay.
Even vegetables can be dried.
Yes.
Yes.
Doctor, I'm just wondering, what about vulnerable groups of people who have a special nutrition?
Yeah.
You know, people who may be diabetic, or people who have some of these conditions where they are required to eat particular types of food. How do we deal with such family members in a situation like this?
Good. Before I go on to your special groups category, I'd just like to talk about innovativeness that really can be helped. Preservation of, let's say you grow a lot of mangoes in Ukambani. Can we help the ordinary person make it last longer in drying? Can we help us dry vegetables almost on a commercial way, where and I have tried to grow a little bit of vegetable, and sometimes you have a lot of it, you can't eat all of it.
Yes.
But you don't know how to keep it. And this is now where technology basically should be sort of pushed to the machinani kwa ground, as you like saying, Pastor James, where you're taught very easily how do you preserve your mboga so that they last a little bit longer. How can we have snacks that are made from the carrot sticks or cucumbers that we have, and we learn to make our own sauces so that they are a little bit palatable and so on. That information may not necessarily be people at the ground where that food is produced in abundance.
Yes.
And that is where some of the innovativeness would come from trying to help those farmers preserve the foods. It's, number one, stabilizes the prices. Number two, it makes sure that's available, and you do not have to have a fridge that's working. You may have a fridge. I have a fridge. Sometimes you go without power for a long time, and you have all that stocked food being lost. So I think there is an opportunity for learning to preserve some of the foods that do not have a long shelf life. But to go on to your question of vulnerable groups are people like old people, and I belong to that category.
We are catching up. We are catching up with you.
Don't be in a hurry. We have expectant women.
Yes.
We have even teenage girls who are just at the stage of becoming mothers themselves. You need to think about their nutrition. We have ailing people who may have diabetes, who may have malignancies of one form or the other.
Yes.
And those special categories of people who have certain illnesses that demand that they have certain types of foods. If you're on some medication, it's important that you are in conversation with your healthcare provider to let you know what possible interactions occur between the foods you take and the drugs you do have. You need to have a good conversation with the mother who comes to antenatal clinic, what they do require. I know we put mothers on iron and so on, and many of them say, I don't like the taste of iron. Iron tastes terrible. Why can't I eat a whole, a lot of spinach? You can't eat a whole guinea of spinach. The baby takes a lot more, the ungrown baby, the growing baby takes a lot more than you're able to actually consume. That's why we do supplement. Then there's a whole issue that tends to be less recognized, and that's the old people and the young children. Young children who are just been weaned and so on. And the very old people who are not able to take a lot, they sometimes have some intolerance to certain types of foods, or because food is a culturally driven thing.
Yes.
We just don't eat watermelons when it comes. Therefore, snakes were some people would.
Yes.
Not elephants.
No, elephants, we've chased them away, so they're not within our whatever. But I guess there are people who will not have pumpkins, for instance.
Yes.
I have issues with pumpkin until recently. I had a lot of them when I was growing up.
I'm with you on that one.
And yet they are very, very healthy foods. So there are cultural components to foods. And in this particular circumstance, we will have to adapt to the new diets, to snacking on carrot sticks or cucumbers, where we made our own vinaigrette, if you like, to make it a little tasty, to have sim-sim, to have groundnuts and so on in small quantities and so forth. We'd have to adjust. But sustained behavior change in humans is difficult.
Very.
And driving some agenda with fear is not sustainable. You know, you could die if you speed, James. You know, you could die. People still speed up, yeah? You get HIV when you engage in certain whatever.
Yes,
that
people
doesn't,
still,
whatever. So we need to internalize why this is important when you're dealing with vulnerable groups, to keep them healthier longer, to give them, in fact, development, some deficiencies, especially micronutrient deficiencies, are long-lasting. For instance, anemia. Anemia is basically where your blood levels are low. There are many babies who are healthy and chubby who are actually iron deficient. But their hemoglobin has not dropped. But what happens to them? There are subtle issues of brain development that relate to learning, memory, size of the hippocampus and so on, that are affected and sometimes affected permanently when you do not get the right diet at the right time.
Yes.
You could also get Justus, Justus is my fellow Rotarian. Jasper, yes. Casper, the friendly little ghost. There are foods that provide us with these nutrients, but eaten in the wrong combination actually cancel out. And that has something to do with weaning diets and so on. And I like Jasper probably to address that. We eat bread and with milk and so on, and then does that provide us with enough calcium? And maybe he could address that.
We usually think sitakutana zote kwa tumbo since
it's true. The way we prepare food and the way we mix, or the combination of food we eat in a meal, affect the availability of nutrients that we anticipate to get from those foods that we eat. Just the way he has said, and more so when we talk about iron, which is one of the critical nutrients in infancy and even in adolescence, and during pregnancy. If you eat an iron-rich food, for example, let's say beef or liver, and then after that you take a cup of tea, a strong tea after that, the presence of tea ends up reducing how much of that iron would be absorbed. That is, for example, one example of like what he means. We take carrots, and carrots in among the foods is the richest source of vitamin A in our diet. Vitamin A is, we say it's fat soluble. It dissolves in oil. Vegetables that we eat green leafy, they are rich in vitamin E also, and that is also fat soluble. It dissolves in fat. I'll try to request you to imagine when a stew is made, beef stew, with tomatoes, carrots, and then it's served on a white plate,
Yes.
You'll see that there's some orangish
Yes.
color that remains on the plate.
We call it top layer.
We used to. Now we remove it.
That orangish color
Uh-huh.
is the vitamin A that has dissolved in the fat that was used, or the oil that was used in making that food. So they become one.
Yeah.
So for vitamin A to be absorbed, it needs to dissolve in that oil or fat.
Mhm.
So that as fat is being absorbed, it also gets absorbed together with fat. So if you make your vegetables and you don't add oil to them, then you're not benefiting from the fat-soluble vitamins. Those are some of the things that you need to consider.
I think that's a whole show by itself. You give us some of those different combinations. Gentlemen,
Combination
our
and
time
preparation.
Yes, our time
Yes.
is almost up, but we can't talk about nutrition and not talk about exercise a bit, because we are stuck at home.
Yes.
Yeah, and some of us are just in the house the whole day.
Yes.
We don't take a walk, we don't do anything. How important is that, even for our children?
Yes, you're quite right. And there are many people for whom a stressful situation is interpreted in our heads as hunger.
Yeah.
And,
Yes.
It's very common when you're stressed during exams or you're preparing, you keep on
Just want to
cup
eat
of
something.
tea,
Yeah.
some biscuit or something, or maybe some nuts. So a stressor situation can easily be converted to an excessive eating of the wrong things, particularly, and being carbohydrate based, it's even more danger.
Yeah.
But really, our weight and our health is related to how much we take. Of course, we have different body types. There are people, I joke that there are people who would pass near a place where ugali is being made. Just by inhaling the fumes, they just gain weight.
I belong to that group, sir.
There are those that will eat a whole kilo every day and they
Yes.
basically remain thin, but with different body types. But generally, there is a direct relationship between the amount we put in and the amount we burn out. Some people can burn faster than they can accumulate. So
Yeah.
one has to know themselves. But generally, I think Jasper put it well, it's moderation. You like nyama choma and ugali, especially the nyama choma that has a bit of fat.
Yeah.
You just have to exercise moderation. In a way, a bit of poverty isn't bad, because you just get your small piece of meat
Yes.
and you get your small piece of ugali and
Yes.
so on. So you must deliberately seek to burn up the calories. Whether it is doing some press-ups in the house, whether it's moving up and down the stairs if you
Yeah.
have any, whether it is running around about the house and so on, anything that raises your heart rate is good for you. If you're able to raise your heart rate for about 20 minutes and so on,
Yeah.
you are able to burn enough. So the exercise that you do must make you a little breathless.
Yes.
You should be breathless by the time you're doing that. If you're lucky enough to be able to swim, swimming is an excellent exercise. But all of us can actually exercise in the areas we are at. And there are many YouTube movies now, luckily.
Yeah.
IT shows you how even in the kitchen you use that as your bench press and so
Yes.
on. So let's think about how much we are eating, the inactivity that has been forced on us for our own good, and the risks to our body for by continued cooped up exposure or cabin fever that we all experiencing.
Okay. Okay. Jasper, parting shots?
Parting shot.
Yeah.
At this time when people are staying at home, they cut down on their sugar intake. Choose less of carbohydrate snacks,
Yeah.
as we had highlighted. Peanuts, groundnuts, sim, and the rest can form a good snacking foods
Yes.
for them at home. They need to exercise, as has been highlighted, the importance of exercise.
Yes.
And they also need to sleep well.
Mm.
And when it comes to sleep, it's not just about lying in the bed. I think some other time the doctor would maybe come here and explain to people there's something called circadian rhythm or clock, which is controlled by it's how we sleep and wake up.
Yeah.
And you find people tend to sleep with their lights on. When you sleep with the lights on, you interrupt that clock.
really?
Because so long as there's light,
Yeah.
that clock continue working. It's like you're awake. You'll be lying in bed, but you're not sleeping.
Yes.
So when they go to sleep, let their bedrooms be as dark as possible,
Yes.
so that they get the adequate rest that they need.
Okay.
Yes.
Gentlemen, I'm so grateful. Asanteni sana.
Asante.
We don't know how long this will stretch out. If it stretches out longer, we will need to call you back so that we can keep reminding ourselves some of these things. They may look little, but they're very important.
Exactly.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, that's all the time we have for Lifestyle Friday for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope that conversation has been beneficial to you. And Sambaza, tell your neighbors, tell your family some of the things that you are learning, because we are in this thing together. Let's wait and see what God will have in store for us next week. Have a great day.